Let's be honest. If she's lying awake at night thinking about you, it's not because of your looks, your money, or some smooth line you memorized. It's because you touched a part of her mind most men never even realize exists. And I need you to understand this early because what I'm about to tell you isn't taught, isn't talked about, and definitely isn't obvious. Most men try to be unforgettable by doing more. More texting, more explaining, more chasing, more proving. And without realizing it, they erase themselves from her thoughts the moment the phone goes dark. What keeps a woman awake isn't constant presence. It's emotional residue. It's the unfinished sentence in her chest. It's the feeling that something important was left unresolved between you. Women don't obsess over what they fully understand. They obsess over what they feel, but can't logically complete. That's where the sleepless nights are born. Here's the uncomfortable truth most men never hear. The male instinct to clarify, reassure, and lock things down kills attraction at the psychological level. When you rush to explain your feelings, when you answer too quickly, when you make yourself fully available without friction, her nervous system relaxes. Comfort replaces curiosity, and curiosity is what fuels obsession. A woman's mind is wired to replay emotional contrast, not emotional certainty. If every interaction with you is predictable, warm, and complete, her brain files you away as safe but silent. Safe men don't echo at night. Men who create emotional movement do. And emotional movement doesn't come from manipulation or games. It comes from restraint, from knowing when not to fill the space, from allowing her to feel something rise without immediately resolving it. Think of it like a song that cuts off right before the chorus. Your brain doesn't relax. It loops. It waits. It wants completion. That's exactly what happens when you leave an interaction at its emotional peak instead of dragging it into emotional exhaustion. When you talk to her, the goal isn't to impress her mind. It's to activate it. Ask questions that make her reflect instead of respond. Share thoughts that reveal depth but not dependency. And most importantly, exit the interaction while the emotional current is still flowing. Don't stay until it dies. The men women think about late at night are the ones who didn't try to secure the moment. They let the moment breathe. They weren't afraid of silence. They weren't afraid to be misunderstood just enough to stay interesting. They trusted that attraction grows stronger in space, not suffocation. If you've ever noticed her texting you late, reopening conversations that already ended, or bringing up things you said days ago, that's not coincidence. That's her mind looping. That's emotional residue doing its work. And the men who trigger this don't beg for attention. They withdraw at the right time. This isn't about being cold. It's about being grounded. When a woman senses that you are emotionally self-contained, not chasing validation, not anxious for response, her subconscious leans in because calm confidence creates gravity, and gravity keeps thoughts orbiting long after the lights are off. Most men try to be unforgettable by being louder. The ones she can't sleep over learned how to be felt and then knew when to leave the feeling unfinished. What most men never realize is that a woman doesn't fall asleep replaying what you did for her. She replays how you made her feel about herself in your presence. This is where the real psychological shift happens. Because the fastest way to stay in her mind isn't to chase her emotions. It's to subtly redirect them inward. When you make a woman feel seen, not flattered, something changes. Compliments are cheap. She's heard them all. Pretty, beautiful, smart. Those words land on the surface and slide off. But when you reflect something deeper back to her, something she didn't even fully articulate, her brain pauses, and that pause becomes memory. For example, when she talks about her stress, most men rush to fix it. They offer solutions, reassurance, logic that kills emotional depth. Instead, the man she can't stop thinking about listens just long enough to understand the emotion beneath the words, then mirrors it back with clarity, not sympathy, understanding. There's a big difference. When you say something like, "It sounds like you're tired of always being the strong one," you're not solving her problem. You're naming an internal truth. Her nervous system reacts because you articulated something she feels but rarely hears spoken. That's powerful. That creates emotional imprinting. A woman's mind bonds through emotional recognition, not emotional rescue. When she feels Recognized, her brain associates you with relief without dependency. That's why she thinks about you when she's alone, because your presence didn't overwhelm her. It grounded her. Another mistake men make is oversharing to build closeness. They dump their fears, their insecurities, their need for reassurance. They think vulnerability equals intimacy, but premature vulnerability creates emotional imbalance. It silently asks her to regulate your emotions, and attraction fades when polarity disappears. The man who stays in her thoughts shares selectively. He reveals depth but never chaos. He's emotionally open without being emotionally needy. That balance tells her subconscious one thing: this man is stable, and stability is intoxicating when it's paired with mystery. There's also something else that keeps her awake at night: the feeling that she hasn't fully unlocked you. If she feels like she understands you completely, curiosity dies. But if she senses layers, calm on the surface, depth underneath, her mind keeps exploring when you're gone. This doesn't mean being secretive or distant. It means not narrating your entire inner world. Let your actions and tone speak louder than your explanations. Let her experience you instead of analyzing you. Experience lingers, analysis ends. And here's the subtle part most men miss. When you end conversations, do it with warmth, not withdrawal. Don't disappear cold. Leave on a high note, a genuine smile in your voice, a calm "we'll talk later" without urgency. That combination tells her you enjoy her, but you don't need her. And that paradox is what her mind replays. Women don't lie awake thinking about men who chase them. They lie awake thinking about men who made them feel deeply understood and then calmly return to their own lives. That balance triggers reflection, and reflection is the doorway to obsession. If you can master this emotional recognition without emotional dependence, you stop being a moment in her day and start becoming a presence in her mind. Here's where things become uncomfortable for most men, because this part requires discipline instead of effort. The thing that keeps her awake at night isn't what you say when you're with her. It's what you don't say when you leave. Silence, when used correctly, is louder than any message you could send. Most men panic in silence. They assume if they're not texting, they're being forgotten. So they fill the gap with check-ins, jokes, memes, and just thinking about you messages. And every one of those chips away at the tension that keeps her mind engaged, because tension, not reassurance, fuels psychological attachment. A woman's subconscious is constantly scanning for emotional contrast. When you're present and then suddenly absent without explanation, without drama, without coldness, her mind starts to fill in the blanks. And the brain hates blanks. It tries to complete patterns. That's why she starts replaying conversations, tone, eye contact, moments you shared. That's when sleep becomes difficult. This isn't about ignoring her. It's about not over-accessing her. There's a big difference. Ignoring creates insecurity and resentment. Restraint creates curiosity. The key is consistency in your character, not your availability. When she knows you're grounded and purposeful, your absence doesn't feel like rejection. It feels like mystery. Men who stay in her thoughts don't explain their silence. They don't apologize for being busy. They simply live full lives, and that communicates value without a single word, because the subconscious reads behavior, not excuses. Another mistake men make is trying to lock in certainty too early. They ask where things are going. They seek definitions. They want reassurance that she's thinking about them too, but the moment you ask for confirmation, you collapse the emotional wave. You trade possibility for clarity. And clarity feels good, but it doesn't linger. Women replay moments that could mean something, not moments that are already defined. When everything is labeled, there's nothing left to explore. And exploration is what keeps her mind active when the room is quiet and the lights are off. There's also the energy you carry during interactions. If you bring urgency, she feels pressure. Pressure creates resistance. But when you bring calm presence, when you're attentive but unhurried, her nervous system syncs to yours. That's why she feels more relaxed around you, and paradoxically, more emotionally stimulated. When you leave an interaction without rushing the next one, you create space for her emotions to rise naturally. She starts wondering when she'll hear from you, not because she's anxious, but because she's curious. And curiosity is addictive. The men women can't stop thinking about don't try to stay on her mind. They trust that what they planted will grow on its own. They don't dig up the seed every hour to check progress. They let time and space do the work. If you can tolerate silence without reaching for validation, you send a powerful signal. You tell her subconscious that you are comfortable within yourself, and self-contained men create emotional gravity. Gravity pulls thoughts back again and again, especially at night when distractions fade. This is the paradox. The less you try to occupy her mind, the more space you actually take up in it. There's a specific emotional trigger that keeps a woman mentally returning to a man. And it has nothing to do with attraction in the physical sense. It's the feeling of emotional safety mixed with emotional elevation. Most men only offer one or the other. The ones she can't stop thinking about know how to create both in the same moment. Emotional safety means she doesn't feel judged, rushed, or pressured to perform. When she speaks, she doesn't feel interrupted or corrected. She feels accepted in her current state. But here's where men get it wrong. They stop there. They become agreeable, predictable, flat. And while safety builds comfort, it doesn't build desire. Emotional elevation is different. It's when she feels more alive, more aware, more connected to herself after being around you. It's when a conversation leaves her reflective instead of drained. That elevation doesn't come from excitement or humor alone. It comes from presence, from asking questions that challenge her gently, from sharing perspectives that expand her thinking without trying to dominate it. When you combine safety with elevation, something rare happens. Her nervous system relaxes while her mind stays alert. That combination is addictive. It's the same reason people rewatch movies that made them feel something subtle but deep. The feeling doesn't overwhelm. It resonates. A man who triggers this doesn't rush emotional moments. If she shares something personal, he doesn't immediately respond with reassurance or praise. He allows a pause. He lets the weight of the moment settle. That pause signals respect, and respect deepens impact. There's also how you handle her emotions when they fluctuate. Women test emotional consistency not through logic, but through shifts. One day she's open, another day she's distant. Most men react to the shift. They ask what's wrong. They try to fix it. They personalize it. And in doing so, they reveal emotional dependence. The man she thinks about doesn't react. He remains steady. He doesn't withdraw affection, but he doesn't chase it either. His calm becomes an anchor. And when her emotions stabilize, her mind associates that regulation with you. That's powerful psychological conditioning. Another overlooked factor is how you end emotional conversations. If she opens up late at night and you stay until exhaustion, the moment loses its potency. But if you acknowledge her vulnerability, hold space briefly, and then exit with warmth and confidence, the emotional energy remains active. It doesn't collapse. It continues to move in her mind. This is why women often think about men who didn't stay the longest, but stayed the clearest. Men who didn't blur emotional boundaries. Men who didn't turn connection into consumption. And understand this clearly. Emotional elevation does not come from trying to be impressive. It comes from being grounded in your own values. When you speak from certainty rather than approval seeking, her mind registers strength, not dominance. Strength. At night, when distractions fade, her mind returns to the emotional environments that felt both safe and alive. If time with you created that dual state, you become a mental refuge and a mental spark. And that combination is rare. Most men offer intensity without stability or stability without depth. The man she can't sleep over offers both without ever forcing it. There's one final mistake that quietly erases men from a woman's thoughts, and it's the urge to claim her attention instead of allowing it to return naturally. The moment you start behaving as if her time, her responses, or her emotional energy belong to you, her subconscious pulls away. Not because she dislikes you, but because autonomy is essential to desire. A woman needs to feel that thinking about you is her choice, not an obligation you created. When men demand consistency, daily check-ins, or constant reassurance, they turn attraction into duty. And duty doesn't keep anyone awake at night. The man she thinks about respects her autonomy without detaching emotionally. He doesn't punish her silence. He doesn't reward her attention excessively. He receives both with the same calm presence. That emotional neutrality creates psychological safety and keeps power balanced. There's also how you react when she invests emotionally. When she opens up, shows curiosity, or seeks you out, most men overcorrect. They increase availability, they escalate intensity, they match her energy immediately. And again, the tension collapses. The man who stays in her thoughts allows her investment to stand on its own. He acknowledges it, appreciates it, but doesn't rush to equalize it. This creates a symmetry in the right direction. Her mind begins to wonder where she stands with you, and that wondering fuels reflection. Another overlooked factor is purpose. Men without direction become emotionally absorbing, but mentally forgettable. Men with purpose become mentally magnetic. When your life has momentum, goals, discipline, structure, your presence carries weight. And when you're not around, that weight is felt. You don't need to talk about your purpose constantly. In fact, you shouldn't. Purpose is revealed through boundaries, priorities, and consistency. When you can say no without explanation, when you protect your time without guilt, her subconscious registers value. Women think about men who don't orbit them. They think about men who have gravity of their own. There's also the way you handle praise and validation. If she compliments you and you deflect awkwardly or seek more, it reveals insecurity. If you absorb it calmly and move on, it reveals self-assurance. That self-assurance becomes a mental anchor. At night, when her mind drifts, it doesn't return to men who needed her to feel important. It returns to men who were important without her validation. And here's the quiet truth most men never hear. Obsession isn't created by doing something special once. It's created by consistent emotional integrity, by being the same grounded, calm presence, whether she's close or distant. When she can't predict your availability, but can trust your character, her mind stays engaged, not anxious, engaged. If you've ever wondered why certain men linger in women's thoughts long after interactions end, it's not mystery alone. It's respect. Respect for themselves, respect for her autonomy, respect for the emotional space between two people. And that space, when held correctly, becomes the place her thoughts return to when the world finally goes quiet. By now, you should see the pattern. The men women can't sleep over aren't doing more. They're being different. And this final truth is the one that separates temporary attraction from lasting mental presence. A woman keeps thinking about a man when he represents a version of herself she feels more aligned with. Not because he changes her, but because he reflects her highest emotional state back to her. When she's around you, she feels calmer, clearer, more grounded, more herself. And when you're gone, her mind wants to return to that state. So it returns to you. This is why trying to trigger obsession through tactics alone always fails long-term. You can create curiosity, tension, mystery, but without emotional integrity underneath it fades. The deepest attachment comes when your behavior is congruent, when your words match your energy, when your presence feels solid, not performative. Women are extremely sensitive to emotional incongruence. If you say the right things, but your energy is anxious, she feels it. If you act confident but seek reassurance, she feels it. And once that disconnect is detected, her mind stops looping because there's nothing stable to return to. The man she can't stop thinking about is emotionally clean. He doesn't say things he doesn't mean. He doesn't promise access he can't maintain. He doesn't create intensity he can't hold. That reliability at the emotional level creates trust without dependence. And here's the paradox. When a woman feels emotionally safe with a man who is also self-directed and non-needy, her mind relaxes enough to wander toward him. That's when thoughts arise naturally. That's when she catches herself smiling for no reason. That's when sleep becomes harder, not because of anxiety, but because of quiet reflection. Another critical element is how you leave her emotionally after interactions. If she feels drained, confused, or pressured, her mind avoids revisiting you. But if she feels calm, centered, and subtly elevated, her mind seeks that feeling again. And feelings always search for their source. This is why chasing attention never works. Attention doesn't equal attachment. Emotional state does. The men who leave the deepest imprint don't ask, "How do I make her think about me?" They ask, "What emotional environment do I create when I'm present?" Because the environment is what her mind remembers. Not the words, not the gestures. If you embody calm, confidence, emotional restraint, curiosity without need, and purpose without explanation, you don't have to force anything. Her mind will do the work for you in the quiet moments, in the pauses, in the spaces where thoughts wander freely. And now I want to ask you something personal. Not for me, for you. When you think about the women who stayed on your mind the longest, Was it because of how much they chased you or how you felt about yourself when you were with them? Write your answer in the comments. If this message helped you see attraction more clearly, like this video, subscribe for more truths most men never hear, and share this with a friend who needs to understand this before he loses himself trying to impress the wrong A.